You know, every great building needs a blueprint, right? Well, for a nation as massive and diverse as India, that blueprint is its constitution. Today, we're going to take a tour of the absolute foundation, the first 100 articles. This is the very DNA of the Indian Republic. So, let's get right into it.
So, here's how we're going to break down this blueprint. First up, we'll see how it actually defines the country and its people. Then, we're diving into the rights that are guaranteed to every single citizen. After that, we'll look at the instruction manual given to the government. And finally, we'll check out the machinery, who's actually running the country.
All right, first things first. Before you can build anything, you've got to stake out the land and figure out who's living there. That's exactly what the very first part of this constitutional blueprint does. Now, this is really interesting. Right off the bat, Article 1 describes India not as a federation, but as a union of states. And trust me, that's not just semantics. It's a huge deal. It means the union itself is permanent, indestructible. No state can just decide to pack up and leave. To really get this, just look at the difference. A federation, like you see in the US, is kind of like an agreement between states that decided to come together. But India's union model says something totally different. It says the states are fundamental parts of the nation, not separate entities that just chose to join up. The big takeaway, the nation comes first. And here's where you really see the power of that union. Articles 2 and 3 give the central parliament the authority to literally redraw the map, create new states, change the borders, even rename them. Now, they'll consult the states, sure, but they don't need their permission. This is what that phrase, an indestructible union of destructible states, truly means in practice. Okay, so we've got the territory mapped out, but who are the people? The Constitution set the initial ground rules, but it made a couple of things crystal clear. First, under Article 9, you can't have it both ways, no dual citizenship. And second, Article 11 gives the final say on any future citizenship laws to Parliament, period. All right, let's move on to part 2 of our blueprint. People often call this the Magna Carta of India, and for good reason. This is where the core relationship between you, the citizen, and the government is defined. We're talking about your fundamental rights.
And at the heart of all this is Article 19. This gives you 6 foundational freedoms. You can speak your mind, gather peacefully, form groups, and basically move, live, and work wherever you want in the country. But, and this is a huge but, look at that little asterisk at the bottom. None of these rights are absolute. They can all be limited by what the government considers reasonable restrictions.
Now, out of all the articles on rights, one of them stands in a league of its own. It's just a short, simple sentence on paper, but wow, has it grown and evolved over the years. I'm talking, of course, about Article 21. See, it started as protection of life and personal liberty. Sounds pretty basic, right? But the Supreme Court took that word, life, and said it means way more than just breathing. Over the decades, they've expanded it to include the right to live with dignity, the right to privacy, the right to health, even the right to a clean environment. It's become this living, breathing article that protects the very essence of what it means to be human. So it's great to have all these rights on paper, but what happens if someone violates them? Well, that's where Article 32 comes in. And you just can't overstate how important this is. The main architect of the Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, didn't mince words. He called it the very heart and soul of the Constitution. So why the heart and soul? Because Article 32 gives every citizen the power to go straight to the Supreme Court if their rights are violated. And to make things right, the court has this incredible toolkit of 5 powers called writs, like habeas corpus, which is basically a demand to produce the body to prevent illegal detention, or mandamus, which can order a public official to actually do their job. These aren't just fancy legal terms. They are your personal tools for justice. Okay, we've got the map, we've got the rights. Now for the next layer of the blueprint. This part is a little different. It's not about rights you can sue over in court. It's more like a set of instructions, a moral compass for the government. They're called the Directive Principles of State Policy, or DPSPs for short. Now, the key word to remember here is non-justiciable. That means you can't take the government to court for not following them. But they are fundamental to how the country should be run, guiding the state toward a more just, fair, and welfare-oriented society. Oh, what's really cool is the mix of ideas in these principles. They're not from just one school of thought. You've got Gandhian ideals, like setting up village councils. You've got socialist goals, like making sure the poor get free legal aid. And you've got liberal ideas, like aiming for a uniform civil code for all citizens. It's a real blend of visions for what India should aspire to be.
Then, in 1976, something else was added to the mix. The thinking was, if the state has directives and citizens have rights, then citizens should also have some duties. That's Article 51A. It lists the moral obligations of every citizen, things like respecting the national flag and protecting the environment. It's really the other side of the coin to fundamental rights.
So we've got the land, the people, their rights, and the nation's goals. But who actually makes all this happen? Who runs the show? Our final section looks at the nuts and bolts, the machinery of the union government.
On paper, it looks like the president holds all the executive power. But, and this is probably the most important part of India's parliamentary system, Article 74 says the president has to act on the aid and advice of the prime minister and their cabinet. So here's the bottom line. The president is the formal ceremonial head, but the prime minister is the real head of government. And who makes the laws? That's the job of parliament. And it's not just one big room, it's a three-part body. You've got the president, then the Rajya Sabha, the upper house that represents the states, and the Lok Sabha, the lower house, which is directly elected by you, the people.
So how does this whole machine actually get anything done? How do they pass laws and make decisions day to day? Well, believe it or not, the very first step is just having enough people show up for work.
Yep, the Constitution has a rule for this. It's called a quorum. For either House of Parliament to do any official business, at least 1/10 of the total members have to be in the room. If the attendance drops below that, the session has to be stopped. No quorum, no work. It's as simple as that.
And what if there's a perfect tie on a vote? Article 100 has this fascinating little rule. The Speaker of the House, the person in charge, doesn't usually vote. But if a vote ends in a dead heat, they get to cast the one vote that breaks the tie. This casting vote can literally make or break a law.
And that brings our tour of the first 100 articles to a close. This blueprint has guided India for more than 75 years. So as we look to the future, it leaves us with a really big question to think about. Which part of this foundational document is going to be the most critical for the next 75 years? Will it be how we define our land, the rights of our citizens, the goals we set for our government, or the machinery that runs it all? The answer to that is going to define the India of tomorrow.